Hello, member of the class. Thank you so much for taking your time so that you can listen to our presentations. We are going to present about a group 2 presentation, which is Chinese civilizations. So these are the group members who are involved in this work. So the group members we are having, first we are having myself, Chanda Enokotieno. We are having Benvis Kiplimo. We are also having Jeruto Simat. We are having Nancy Carissa. And finally, we are having Anjala Faith. So from here, I'm going to take you to the next presenter who is going to introduce for us the introduction of the presentation itself. Otherwise, thank you and stay around so that we can listen to them. Thank you.
Hello class, I'm going to take you through introduction and with 100 and more years of continuous history. So Chinese civilization is well known to be among the oldest civilizations and it is regarded as the cradle of civilization. So the geography of ancient China is characterized by the northern desert of China. We have the dry desert to the north and west, and the Pacific Ocean to the east. We also have the Impassable Mountains to the south. Also, we have two main rivers, which are the Yellow River to the north and the Yangtze River to the south. And these two rivers are the great source of fresh water, food, fertile soil, and also facilitated transport. We also have Chinese poetry, art, literature, folk, and folklore are the stories which are based on the myths. We also have the Himalaya Mountains, which are found on the southern part of Chinese civilizations. And these mountains isolated the civilization from other civilizations. We also have the Ancient tribe, which originated from the Chinese culture, and Shang dynasty, which existed between 1600 and 1046 BC, and it started and spread westward and southward along the river basin.
I'm going to take you through the China's political perspective. China's political perspective. We have the Chinese political system is authoritarian, meaning that it is in form of dictatorship. As you can see below the picture, we have the army and the Chinese people trying to demand for their own rights, but they are being denied on. There are no freely elected national leaders, meaning that the elections are not done fairly. As you can see, the aeroplane during the election, trying to scatter people who are demanding for their own rights. All the religious activity is controlled by the CCP. As you can see, people are outside the church. They have no freedom. They have no freedom of their own rights. We have the dissent is not permitted, and civil rights are curtailed. The election in China occur under the single party authoritarian political system, meaning that the Chinese usually occur in a single party. It's not a bicameral, but a unicameral system, political system. The national level institution in each hierarchy are the National People's Congress we have the Congress, we have the National People Congress, the China's unicameral legislature. This is one of the national level institution in each of the hierarchy of National People's Congress. Second, we have the State Council. There is the State Council. We have the China's government cabinet and the National Supervisory Commission, the Supreme People's Court. You can see the picture of the Supreme Court. Yeah, the Supreme People's Procuratorate and the China's top office. The President of China is the head of the state, serving the ceremonial forehead under the national flag. That's the President of China, is the head of state. We also have the Premier of China is the head of the government, presiding over the state council composed of 4 vice premiers and the heads of the ministries and the commissions. Here we have the Premier of China is the head of the government. As one-party state, the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party holds the ultimate power and the authority of the state government. The next, the office of the President, General Secretary, and the Chairman of the Central Military Commission have been held simultaneously by one individual since 1993, granting the individuals the chair and the de facto power over the countries. As you can see, we have the office of the President, the General Secretary, and the Chairman of the Central Military Commission. The next, we have the incident of Hong Kong's missing booksellers had alarmed the public that political confirmation of different political cadre in the senior level of the Chinese Communist Party still dominates the China political. Here we have the Hong Kong's missing bookseller. As you can see there, there above then in the picture, it has been there, and the Hong Kong's missing bookseller. This is the person missing. The missing bookseller had alarmed the public that a political confirmation of the different political culture in the senior level of the Chinese Communist Party. Thanks, and let me welcome the next presenter.
Hello class, I'm going to present on the Chinese economic perspective, and I'm going to talk about farming and livestock first. So Western China, comprising Tibet, Xinjiang, has little agricultural land. In China, they plant rice, and mostly this is practiced in the southern provinces. In North China, wheat is of greatest importance. Also, in China, they plant millet, and in the northeast, they plant soybean crop. Tea is also grown in the hilly areas of China. Then, tobacco comes from the center and parts of the south. And other important crops are potatoes, sugar beets are also planted in China. Another economic activity is forestry and fishing. The principal forests are found in Kin and mountains and the central mountain ranges in the uplands of Sichuan and Yunnan. Much of the country's timber comes from Jin, Sichuan, and so I have some pictures of the forest. Also, fishing in China has a long tradition of ocean and freshwater fishing of agriculture. China is the world's leading producer in both categories. Another economic activity is mining. China's most important mineral resources are hydrocarbons. Is the most Coal is the most abundant. The province of Shaanxi contains about half of the total of coal. Also, in China, there is petroleum resources are located mainly in the northeast at the Dangi oil field. Also, another mineral found in China is iron. Another mineral we have copper. The next economic activity is hydroelectric production. There is manufacturing activities, financial activities, trading activities, transportation and telecommunication activities.
So thank you so much, and I'm going to take you through social, cultural perspective of China. So social, cultural perspective of China. So the first point under this is that among the East Asian countries, China's cultural heritage is the oldest. It's the oldest. So you can see, we are having a picture of China with East Asian countries. So that's where China is located. So dating back in the Qing dynasty, China has been ruled by several leaders, several rulers. So, however, most of these rulers borrow their ideology or to rule the dynasty from the Confucius idea, as we saw it in Confucianism when you are presenting the class. So this is the Confucianism or the Confucius saying. So this man is one day had a certain notorious saying that man who scratches ass should not bite fingernails. So whenever you scratch your ass, make sure that you don't bite your fingernails because it might give you some of the diseases or it can eventually result in some of the diseases. So it's a wise man to do. The next one is that the ensuing dynasty, the Han dynasty, was more successful in establishment of the ideologies, this ideology that you are talking about of Confucius ideal. So the next point is that among the success of the Han is the establishment of some of the factors like the laws and regulations. We have customs that today define the Chinese statehood, that nowadays define the Chinese statehood. So another one is that in addition, the Han Dynasty modernized government structure as well as governance established what you call a civil service based on the technical skills. So China is having technical skills, of course, that enable them to drive the economy and also other perspective of lives. So after Han Dynasty, you find that China underwent a certain social dissonance. Social dissonance here means that the morality went down. Okay, as we saw it in Confucianism. So we find that so many states started to crumble in that perspective, and you find that the immorality got in, and as a result of that, we got these ideologies that comes into being, come into image, like Confucianism, legalism. All these ideologies came trying to prevent the immorality which was going on in China during this era. So another one is that though the country was divided, but there's some of the two key points, two key things which had been or have been perennial, which have stayed over most of the time. And one of it is the language, another one is religion. These key factors eventually unified China. So these are the factors which unified China during this immorality period. Then another point you find that the bulk of Chinese inhabitants and culture are of Han origin. So these cultures that Chinese are having here in there that we see, we could see Chinese Kenya here. So you find that most of it, their cultures that we see with them originated from Han origin. Remember, Han origin. So apart from the cultures and also ideologies, we find that due to the recognition of nation civilization, tremendous strides have been realized, preserving nationhood through ensuring fairness. So there's a certain kind of important value here that Chinese always ensure fairness and hard work among its citizens. Fairness and hard work among its citizens. So assimilations of small groups will see to be coming into the image to associate with the larger tribes so that they can have the unity in China and have the common culture which gives China its strength later on. So China was divided into southern and northern states, but later unified after the association of these small groups together and under the reign of whom we call Sui. So another point, another area that I need us to tackle here is the Chinese culture and value. How are the Chinese culture and value? How is their culture? How do they value their culture? What makes them to be pointed as people who are having value in life in terms of their cultures? The first one is that they borrow most of their culture from Confucius. So if you read Confucius, you find that it is trying to outline some of the values that a citizen should have so that we can live in harmony, right? Yeah. These are good morals. Then we have Taoism ideals also, and also we have Buddhism together with Neo-Confucianism. So another one is that even though we are having these kind of ideologies here and there, but you find that there's having differences. The time when they came to be indifferent, and the result you find that the empire regularly led to divergence in cultural ideals. So this later resulted into divergence in cultural ideals. But look, wait, equal importance is the legalism also getting into the scene. The legalism is ideology which is based on the constitution, the law. They believe, the legalists believe that when you follow law or a certain pattern of rule, you'll intend to have morals in you. So China also stresses the importance of assessment as well as society work. So they assess, they keep on investigating whether you are having morals in you, so whether society is having morals, so that they can uplift where there's weaknesses, and also they can also strengthen their value as the society moves on in the daily life. Another point which is worth to note is the Chinese language and communication pattern. How do they communicate? How do Chinese communicate? Which kind of language do they use to communicate? So, for example, we are having the Mandarin. So Mandarin is a Chinese recognized official language in China. So in Mandarin, you find that there's an incorporation of language applied as a result of Mandarin called phonetic alphabet. So there's incorporation of phonetic alphabet in Mandarin. So there's also dialects incorporated there and pictograms. So these are the ways in which China communicates with each other. Yeah. It's very, very interesting, as you can see. Yes, we have Mandarin. Moreover, due to rich cultural heritage, you find that they are having slowly a lot of heritage, diverse heritage. At times, you find that it might be complicated, the communication. As a result, the government came up with a simple way of communicating, writing and talking. So we call it pinyin system of writing. So So this is the pinyin system of writing, as you can see there. So another interesting feature of the Chinese dialect is that it is differentiated by the increase as well as the reduction in population. So that's also another aspect which can also be considered in the perspective as we are talking about the Chinese language communication. Another point, another area that we need to look at is the Chinese art and craft. How is their art looking like? How is their craft looking like? How do they conduct things through arts and crafts? So let's see. So China is having a variety of conventional arts. You see, which are very significantly portraying Chinese people's diverse expertise as well as beauty in their culture. So these are the examples of variety of conventional arts. These are arts, a variety of them, you can see. So the aspect of Chinese arts ranges from calligraphy, we have poetry, we have music, to opera. So all these ones also portrays Chinese art and crafts. So this is how they normally conduct their life. When we come to art and crafts, so interesting and so appealing to the eye, as you can see. So in addition, China has used visual arts such as painting of Buddha in education, the painting of Buddha in education, and worship activities among the natives. So China culture is also incorporates various kind of aspects, arts, and emblem of ethnic, based on emblem of ethnic diversities. So it incorporates. It means that we have so many diversities in China. In terms of, we have diverse cultures in China based on ethnic backgrounds. As a result, China intends to unify all these kind of ethnical tribes in terms of arts and crafts. So their contribution in terms of their culture, each tribe contribution in terms of culture is incorporated in terms of arts and crafts. So each tribe is represented in this case, as you can see, the fair. That's fair to be mentioned. So the Chinese associated face to reputation. So they normally respect face. The face normally giving reputation. And you find that a loss of face to any, as a result of any kind of activity or any kind of behavior is circumvents loss of to any kind of activities, associated with losing of the face is condemned. It's normally being condemned. So if any activity that can result into loss of face is normally condemned. So we have that kind of face, as you can see. We are also having this kind of face, regardless of how you look like. Chinese recognize face as very important aspect of life. And any activity related to that can relate to the loss of face is normally being led to the highest term possible. So they also value the respect of elders. The failure by any member of the society to perform a stipulated activity, if you fail to perform a certain stipulated activity which you've been assigned to do, times that can amount to a shame or indignity to the whole community. So laziness in one of the members is translated as laziness to the whole community. That's so interesting. So in addition, men are not supposed to hold hands in the public, especially of the opposite sex. So if you see a lady and a man holding, if they see a lady and a man holding hands in public or private, they normally call it a taboo. That's a very, very irrelevant perspective of life according to them. And they regard that one as a caste. That kind of activity, that kind of behavior is caste in China, and it's not normally condoned. As you can see, you are not allowed to do that, and that one will render very wrong, right? So China, or Chinese lifestyle, how is their lifestyle? Let's interrogate. So the China society is hierarchical. The rulers are at the top and the wealthy. This kind of a caste system which is also being seen in India and also other parts of the areas. So why would they have the hierarchical kind of lifestyle where the rulers and the wealthy are at the top? Is because the hierarchical structure enables social mobility. So it is free for any member who want to climb a ladder of a certain kind of step of life in hierarchy. He or she is upon he or she to work hard and be where he or she is. It's not restrictive. So and also it is also meant for unification of society. So generally, the Chinese lifestyle is based on communist ideas drawn from Confucianism, philosophies and ideologies. So these two ideologies help in controlling the behaviors and relationships between individuals as well as the states. So what's about the Chinese religion and beliefs? So the Chinese religion and beliefs is that their religion is called atheism. They are atheists. This is a socialist country. The country, besides atheism, the country is also practicing Buddhism and Taoism. However, majority also tend to practice their own faith. So you can see the Buddhism and the monks dedicate their lives and the traditions that are performed in worship. Apart from worship, we are having traditions. So one of the traditions is Kung Fu. Then we have shadow boxing. So apart from Chinese religions, they are also embedded into the medical values. So you find that something so interesting is that their religion is also practiced in the medical field. They integrate religion to be helpful in the field of medicine, or whatever they are doing in terms of field of medicine is incorporated with their religion. So what's the degree of assimilation? How do they assimilate? How have they assimilated? So you find that with urbanization, which grew up here and there, I find that barbarians, which initially when we were discussing Confucianism, these are the kind of people who interrupted the morality of the China's dynasty scrambled and became immoral. So you find that the barbarian population embraced the culture of slow population in terms of assimilations. So after the upcoming Zhou population from the ideology of Confucianism, the barbarian population got to be assimilated and united together. So consequently, during the unification of China, there was practically total assimilation of non-Chinese. There's also some of the non-Chinese inhabitants. For example, there are so many people who are coming from different countries, even from Kenya, from Africa, into Africa, or other continents, normally going to China. And in this particular case, you find that they get to be assimilated. We are having Africans who are behaving like Chinese. They speak like Chinese. Like in our area, you find that, like a name Fuchie, you find that they tend to call it Ochi, So you find that all these ones, Ochi, So you find that all these ones, the accent is normally get into the being as a result of accepting the culture of Chinese. let's look at also the Chinese health behavior and practices, very important perspective. Chinese believes in traditional plants. They rarely or they merely or they barely believe in scientific plants. They believe in traditional plants. So they normally extract their plants from herbs and is believed to adjust the natural equilibrium of the body as well as restoring health. In addition, the herbs are also useful in defensive nutrition enhancement. So besides having food which is normally being eaten, they also incorporate food with herbs. See? We have Chinese physicians also in this case who performs diagnosis to different patients. In fact, the physicians applies the arts of tongue, pulse diagnosis. You see, these people are advanced. The Chinese culture also emphasizes on the what? On various kind of culture and to traditional drugs, and also in terms of prevention of various kind of diseases. As opposed to scientific, they use traditions, method or ways of treating themselves as opposed to scientific. So that's the end, and thank you for watching that session. I would like to usher in the presenter.
Hello class, I'm going to talk about Chinese scientific inventions, discoveries and innovations. The first invention is the gunpowder, that is the most famous ancient Chinese innovations. As you can see, that is the image of gunpowder. The second innovation is the compass. The earliest compasses were created in the 4th century BC and were made of lodestone. And that is the image of the compass, as you can see. And mostly it is used to give directions. The third innovation is the paper. The normal paper that we use to write on, make notes. That's an example of Chinese innovations. The next one is the wheelbarrow. The Chinese invented the wheelbarrow that was used to make human work easier. As you know, the work of the wheelbarrow. The next innovation is the seismograph. Chinese didn't manage to invent the world's first earthquake detector known as seismograph by the imperial astronomer called Chang Heng that created a seismograph during the Han Dynasty in the 2nd century. As you can see, that is the picture of the seismograph. The next innovation is alcohol. Alcohol was invented by the Chinese people, and I think most of you know this alcohol, and I think some of you like Chacha have already tested it, and you know the feeling when you taste it. The next innovation is the kites. The Chinese people invented the kites, and the two kites that were invented by the people, one man was called Gong Shuban and Moi Di. And the next one is hang gliders. The Chinese also invented the hang gliders. As you can see the image there, that's an example of the hang glider. The Chinese also invented the silk, the normal silk that you also see. We usually use this silk to make clothes and other things, and that is the image of the silk. Another invention is the pasta. not the pastors in theology department, but the pasta, which is food. Anybody who loves a good bowl of pasta or noodles may want to tip his hat to ancient China for coming up with pasta, not the Italians, as you may have suspected. I think some of you suspect that they are the Italians who invented this pasta, but are the Chinese people who invented this pasta. So don't call the theologians pasta, but this pasta is the food. The other invention is the moldboard plow that is used to plow the farms. As you can see, that is an example of the moldboard plow. Another invention is paper money. As you can see, that's an example of currency that is used by Chinese people. And this money were used as a medium of exchange and backed by deposited cash. And that is the image of Chinese money. The Chinese people also managed to invent the helicopter rotor and the propeller. China, 4th century CE. By 4th century CE, a common toy in China was the helicopter called the bamboo dragonfly. The top was an axis with a cord wound round it, and with blades sticking out the axis and set at an angle. And that is the image of the helicopter rotor and propeller. The Chinese people also managed to invent the decimal system. The decimal system that you usually use to calculate mathematics and other figures. The Chinese people also managed to invent the matches, the normal matches that you usually use to light fires at your rooms. I think you know them, and that's a simple image of a matchstick. And I think those are the inventions that the Chinese did.
So in conclusion, so far we've talked about the China's political perspective, which was presented by our host. We talked about China's economic perspective. We've talked about socio-cultural perspective. All these are now clear to us. Under socio-cultural perspective, China, we talked about Chinese cultural values. We also talked about Chinese language and communication patterns. We talked about Chinese arts and crafts. We also talked about Chinese norms, rules. We also talked about Chinese lifestyles. We also talked about Chinese religion and beliefs. We also talked about degree of assimilation. We also talked about Chinese health, behavior, and practices. We also looked at Chinese scientific inventions, discoveries, and innovations as presented by one of our members, and I that gunpowder invented by Chinese. We looked at the compass direction, paper, looked at wheelbarrow, we looked at CSO, we looked at alcohol. Some of you like inside here. We looked at kites. We looked at arm gliders. We looked at sail. We looked at pasta. Not those who are taking you at pastas, but pastas. We looked at on the board now. We looked at paper money. We looked at the helicopter rotor and propeller. We looked at the decimal system. We looked at matches. And I think that's the end. Thank you so much for watching.